how are you? Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I think I'm a minute or two late. It was 6:45 and then it was 7 o'clock. And I just said, uh-oh. I was 99% ready, so it wasn't a problem. I just had to get the camera set up. All right, let's see what's going on. There I am. Okay. So for those of you who do follow me on Facebook personally, not my Facebook page for business, but personally, you know that I got a new cat. Hey, Audrey, how are you? Speaking of cats, Audrey's one of my cat lady friends. She likes cats as much as I do, only I think she's always liked cats, and I'm kind of new to liking cats. But anyway, so we got a new little cat, and his name is Louie. We didn't name him that. He came with that name, but we decided to keep it. It is kind of cute, and we thought that, you know, who knows how many times his name's been changed, and poor thing's probably confused, so we just decided to keep it Louie. And he's different. He's very different. He's tiny. He was rescued from a house that had 6 cats, and then they abandoned the cats and left them in the house, actually in an apartment, for the landlord to find. And so they don't know how long they were without food and all of that other stuff. And he weighs only 7 pounds. He weighed 7.5 pounds. He only weighed 5 pounds when he got to the shelter. And apparently he doesn't talk. And we don't know if he never meowed or made any sound or if it's part of his trauma, but he doesn't make a sound, and he hides everywhere. So last sighting, when I posted this morning, was at 11 p.m. last night. 5 p.m. I saw him, and I saw him again at about 6 o'clock. But you see him, he's like, shoo, shoo, shoo. He's we're calling him Ninja Cat. He's like a shadow, and he's black, so forget it. He hides under a piece of furniture, and you can't see him. So it's been very interesting. So I know he's alive and well. I was starting to panic, thinking that maybe he had somehow gotten out the laundry dryer vent, like maybe the hose wasn't connected and he'd gotten out. So I've been a nervous wreck all day, but when I saw him twice today, I'm like, okay, he's alive. So it's all good. All right, so I'm Roberta Colasino, and I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region. And I'm coming here today with a free live class. Thank you. With a free live class. It is our background technique class number 6. Okay, and we've been learning some background techniques. Some of them might have been new to some of you. Some of them might not have been new. It's always hard to tell. And sometimes they're ones like the ones I'm doing tonight that I just haven't done in a couple of years and kind of forgot about. So it's good for me to sort of refresh my memory as well. So we will turn the camera down and I will get going. All right. I forget that when I put my hand over the camera when it's in one direction, it's kind of funny. I'm covering up the cameras on one side, and then when I flip it, I'm covering it up on the other side so you can sort of still see what I'm doing. All right, so I've got stuff all around me here because I've been playing for a while. I've basically been hiding in my craft room all day so that Louie feels free to run around the house because I think he finds people a little scary. I know that Dexter has been talking to him a little bit. I instructed Dexter to have conversations with him. And I know that sounds crazy. Audrey might be one of the few people on here. Well, Elaine, if Elaine's watching, Elaine won't think that's crazy either. But I said, listen, would you just tell him that the basement's a really good place to go because it's carpeted and he can have his own chair and he can stay down there and be happy and I won't bother him down there and he can have his litter box down there because currently his litter box and his food dishes are in my downstairs powder room, which was suggested to us to keep him in a small room for a few days until he became adjusted. Okay, so this is my host code for the month of, what is it, April. My gosh, for the month of April. If you do plan to place an order in the month of April, please use that host code unless your order is over $150, and then don't use the host code because you will get the rewards. Last chance items are still available. Since the 9th, the discounts have applied, and you just kind of have to check, every once in a while and see what's still available. I've tried to update my list, and it's almost impossible to keep up with it. I do know that the current in color, what are they? The Starry Sky, Parakeet Party, Orchid Oasis, Sorbet and Tahitian Tide, those re-inkers were gone. That's why I always tell people, get the re-inkers. That being said, I wanted to introduce you guys to the new 2024, 2026, I think it is, in colors today by using them for the project. So I have the ink pads, but then I realized it's the re-inkers that I need for the project, and I don't have them because they weren't available to demonstrators just yet. So there is Petunia Pop, Pretty in Pink, which I guess is a returning color, but I don't remember it. Shy Shamrock, Peach Pie, and Summer Splash. So all of them are new except for Pretty in Pink, which I guess was a color. I feel like maybe when I took classes from my upline a number of years ago, it might have been around then, but I can't remember. They really are very pretty colors. I like them a lot, which makes me feel better because I really like the colors that are going away a lot. So I'm sad to see them go, and I'm going to use some of them today in what I'm doing. And then Stampin' Up! Has always had just 50 colors, and they've added a new one. They've added Basic Beige, so they now technically have 51 colors, and this one's just sort of an add-on. It's not considered one of the neutrals. It's obviously not a bright or a regal or a subtle, although it could be a subtle, I guess. They just sort of added it on, and I have a sneaking suspicion, although nobody's told me that. I miss you too, Audrey. I miss our talks. We'll have to talk on the phone since we can't talk in person. So a lot of people liked Sahara Sand, especially people who did no-line watercolor, which I know I've demonstrated before, and it went away. It retired, and I have a feeling they may have gotten some complaints about that. Something's running around on the roof outside my window, so it's catching my attention. I think it's a mourning dove. Okay, so we'll get going, and I'll show you what we're going to do today. So to start with, I've got a piece of, it's a quarter sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, so it is 4 1/4 by 5.5, and I know we're going to need to cut it down, but I figured we'd start with that. And we're going to use, I didn't even tell you what the technique was. So the technique uses baby wipes, except there are two techniques and two very different ways to use baby wipes as a technique. So I have some Pampers baby wipes. These, interestingly enough, an entire case of these showed up on my doorstep one day from Amazon. And I opened the box and I thought, this is kind of interesting. I don't have any babies. I don't have any grandbabies. Why is somebody sending me these? So I called Amazon, and they said, yeah, we don't know why either. You haven't been charged for them. I said, well, can I send them back? They said, no, keep them. So I donated probably 3/4 of the case, and then I decided that I would keep the rest for crafting. So, all right, so when you're using baby wipe technique, especially this particular one, because you need to put the baby wipes down on something, if you have a waterproof surface like mine, you could use that. You could also use just a large block, and that would work. You could use a paper plate. These are nice because they're coated. And you could use a piece of wax paper. You could use a plain, a regular dish, as long as you were sure that it wasn't porous and that your ink wouldn't get into it. All right, so you could use any of those things. I choose to use a block for these. So I've got 2 baby wipes here, and I'm going to open them up, and then I'm going to fold them in half, roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to fold another one in half and put it on top of that one, and then I'm going to fold that in half. So this is basically turning into my stamp pad or my ink pad. And I'm going to use this flower stamp, which is from, I know you always hear this from me, Inked and Tiled, one of my favorite sets, because I just wanted to do a flower that didn't have leaves attached to it. So I found this one. All right. Also, good idea whenever you're doing something messy to have a paper towel nearby, but I've also got handy wipe, or not handy wipes, baby wipes right on my lap, so I should be fine if I do make a mess. Okay, so I'm going to use some colors. I pulled out 4. Most people do this technique with 2 or 3 colors. I think I'm just trying to decide what to do. So I got out Cherry Cobbler, Real Red, and Sweet Sorbet. And I also got out Lemon Lolly. I wasn't sure about that. Cherry Cobbler is darker than Real Red, and Real Red and Sweet Sorbet are kind of different shades of red, but I wasn't sure if you would notice too much of a difference. So I thought, well, what if I did use all of them? Sweet Sorbet is the lightest of the reds. Obviously, Lemon Lolly is a very light yellow. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a very light yellow. So I'm going to put some Sweet Sorbet down as like maybe almost my main color. And I'm just kind of dotting it around, and I'm trying to remember like how big that stamp is. I want to make sure there's enough area for that, because obviously if this was a real ink pad, there would be much more room on it. And then I'm going to grab some cherry cobbler, and I'm going to kind of put that around. Now you will notice I have some white spots, and I'm working towards not having any left at the end. I'm putting some of the cherry cobbler towards the outside and some towards the middle. I can always come back, and I dabbed my hand there. So let's just clean that off. Then I'm going to come in with a little bit of real red. Now, most of you, I'm sure, know what happens when you mix red and yellow. Audrey says it's very hard to leave comments, and once you leave a comment, then you lose the whole video. That's really strange. Are you on a computer or a phone or an iPad or what? Because that's good. Nobody's ever said that to me before, so that's good information to have. So if you mix red and yellow, obviously you get some orange. So I'm not sure how I feel about this, but I'm still going to do it. So I'm just taking some of the lemon lolly and just dabbing it around, basically filling in the white spots. It may do absolutely nothing. It may do something. We'll see. Time will tell, right? So now I have my ink pad, literally have my ink pad. So what I'm going to do, which again, most of you have seen me do before, is a little bit of DIY DSP, but instead of using a regular ink pad and doing it with maybe only one color, this gives us some multiple colors. So let me make sure I'm in frame here. So I'm just going to ink it up. I don't want to smush it because then it will mix all the colors together, and I don't want to do that. Usually when I'm doing DIY, okay, you also have to know this is a sketchy stamp, so there's nothing wrong with what I just did there. It's just a sketchy stamp. It's supposed to be that way. I start on the inside and I work my way out. And I do that because otherwise, if you end up with a spot on the inside that needs filling, you may not be able to fill it. So for those of you who haven't seen this technique, DIY DSP is a do-it-yourself designer series paper. Yep, I didn't want to stamp off with that one. So basically I'm just making a background that might sort of look to someone like designer series paper, only it's not. And it doesn't have to be perfect. All right, now that time I didn't put down any scrap paper or anything, but that's actually okay. This particular mat I've had for probably 20 years, and it is getting to the point where now when I wipe it down, it sort of leaves some marks on it, and sometimes they go away and sometimes they don't. So I'm probably due for a new one. So I do want to let that dry off a little bit. And then I know that I'm going to have to cut this down because it's too big. And I grabbed a piece of sweet sorbet cardstock. Just don't want to put my cardstock down on anything wet. There we go. And this is just half of a sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper. Okay, so you're on your iPad. I don't know. I'm going to have to see if anybody else watches on their iPad and ask them if they've noticed that. That's really kind of weird. It certainly shouldn't happen, but it's technology, and I don't always understand why it does some of the things it does. So this is 4.5 by 5.25. So I want my other piece to be smaller than that so that we can see a border. Sometimes we want to see a lot of border. Sometimes we only want to see a hint of border. So that's entirely up to whoever's making the card. So the typical next size for a card layer would be 4 by 5.25. The other thing I tell people is look and see if there's anything you don't like and cut from that side. So there's really nothing here that I hate. Sometimes I just take a little bit off from each side. So 4 by 5.25. I'm not thrilled with that, so maybe, well, I'm not thrilled with that either. So, and again, it doesn't matter. We tend to be our own worst critics, and these are things that people who don't make cards would absolutely never notice. So I was asked by someone about my glue. This is the Tombow Mono Multi-Purpose Liquid Glue that Stampin' Up! Sells and that I have in my online store. And I put it in these bottles because sometimes at classes, people are just convinced that their papers are not going to stick together unless they put a pound of glue on them. This is the technique that I teach them, even when we were using the regular bottle. Whether you do swirls or zigzags, the point is to keep your tip moving, because if you stop and push and then move, you're going to end up with little globs of glue everywhere. So I always keep my tip moving, and that way I get a thin line. And if you want to go back because you think maybe you missed a corner and you want to make sure you've got the corner, because I don't like it when the corners pop up, then go back and do a little bit more. But you truly don't need to use any more than that. This is a very strong glue. I don't just say that. I'm not being cheap with the glue. It really is very strong. And if it's thick, then you get these little bumps on the paper where you can see the bumps through the paper, and that's no fun. That's no good. Okay, so we've got that, and then we will need an inside layer as well. And I didn't cut any of these ahead of time. I just cut them into quarters because I wasn't exactly sure which technique I was going to be doing when. Okay, so with the inside, I'll point out too, and I know I've said this before, some people like to write lots on the inside of a card. You know, you have a lot to say to the person, and you're not just saying happy birthday, you know, Betty, love Susie, and you've got a lot to write, then make your inside liner bigger. Some people cannot think of something to write inside the card besides whatever they're saying, happy birthday or whatever. So those people like to make their cards smaller so that they're not forced to write as much, or they don't feel like they have to. So I'm going to use the same non-ink pad, the same baby wipe pad, and I'm just going to go along the bottom, and I'm overlapping a little bit, and just make a little border on the bottom. So that's just a tiny bit more room taken up, so we don't have to write more. So you kind of see what's happening here. Maybe you can't. It's like it's getting discolored, and it stays discolored for a while. I don't really know why. So it's not the prettiest thing for me to have under there as my layer, but there's always some kind of an avalanche in my craft room. I don't know what it is, but something's always falling. And I don't think there are any cats in here. I closed the door because last night he got in here and I forgot that I had left the closet door open, and he got in the closet way back in the corner where I couldn't get to him. So I finally just left the closet door open and left the bedroom door open and just walked out. And obviously he eventually went out, but then I didn't see him again till 11 o'clock at night. I think that Louis is going to be a handful, at least for a while. And I'm okay with that. I knew that he was kind of a special cat, and that was one of the reasons why my daughter and I picked him, I think. Even though she doesn't live here anymore, and she won't have to deal with him for months now. Although she did say that he could come and stay with her if he kept hiding, because she lives in a one-bedroom apartment, so there aren't so many places to hide. All right, so we've got our insides, we've got this, and let's see. So Inked and Tiled comes with several sentiments. It comes with just a note, congratulations, thank you, lots of love, hello friend. But I'll tell you what I realized recently is that I have a severe shortage of get well type cards. So this is from the brand new stamp set that has not even been released yet. It'll be out when the new catalog comes out. It's called Sweetly Scripted, and I love these. So every font is different. They're all cursive, but they're all slightly different. And I like them all, and they have these lines. Sometimes, like on Save the Date, the line is all the way over on one side. For Speedy Recovery, it's on the other side. Sometimes it's dead center. I like it a lot. I'm going to be a fan of this one, I can tell. So I need a strip, because that certainly won't fit in any of our punches. So I've got this whole jar full of strips like this, because they're all cut-offs from when I do different, projects. So I don't throw those out because they're perfect. Well, let me see. Maybe they're not perfect. No, I think it'll be okay. If not, I think I have wider ones. And I've been using today a lot of Memento, which I sometimes don't use. Sometimes I like to use a gray or a matching color. but I've been using Memento today. So when you have a stamp like this that would be hard to bring to the ink pad, just turn the ink pad upside down and bring the ink pad to the stamp. Oh, I think that might be a little globby. Every once in a while I get something globby, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. Let's see. I think I want to put this way over because we're probably, well, not probably, we are going to have to cut off part of it, although I could. Notice how I can't talk and stamp at the same time? Okay, that's not bad. It's just a little thick, but maybe this one's just a different cursive. Maybe that's why it's thick, because I didn't use this one earlier. I used something else. All right, I'm going to take my Stampin' Chamois and just give that a wipe off. These things are wonderful. I think the price of these, I think I mentioned there were some price increases coming up. I think the price of these is going up maybe $1. Most of the price increases are very nominal, but a few of them are like $2 and $2.50. So those are the kinds of things you want to get your hands on now. So let's see, if I want to put it on like that, then I'm just losing some of that. I could make it go this way, and then this would just look like a border on the side. I could do that. Yeah, why not? So a lot of people think that cards that go in this direction should always be the kind that go the other way, but I don't see why they have to be. I've said this before, there are no rules. There really aren't. I'm really wondering if I have a scrap of Poppy Parade someplace. Sometimes it's so hard to match them up. Is that it? Right? Nope. That's not it. That's not it. Typically, whatever I'm looking for is what I don't have. That's the way it works. Is that it? No, it's not. Okay, never mind. It was just an idea, and I'll show you what my idea was in a few. All right, so we're going to put that there. And then I'm going to have to cut that. So what did we say that was? That was 5 1/4. So I'm going to have to cut this down to 5 1/4. I'm still going to lose just a tiny touch of that. But that's all right. One of the things I kind of like about these particular types of stamps is that sometimes the squiggly line, or whatever you want to call it, goes right off the edge. I just feel like I want to put something under that to make it pop. And I was going to use a piece of, did I say Poppy Parade? No, it's Sweet Sorbet. I was going to use a piece of Sweet Sorbet, but I don't have a piece of Sweet Sorbet. Now, I do have Cherry Cobbler in there. So maybe if I go back into my red scraps, I don't think that's Cherry Cobbler. I think that might be a piece of Retired Mary Merlot. When I get rid of my retired stuff, sometimes I don't think to clean out my, yeah, that's Cherry Cobbler. Okay, that's like a huge piece, though. That's hardly a scrap. Wow. Okay, well, it is what it is. I have to use it, so there. Okay. So I'm going to cut, I believe that's 1/4 of an inch. Quarter of an inch by 5 1/4. So what we can do is we can layer them like that and have that either on the top or the bottom. I don't know how much it matters, but just remember, if you're putting it on the bottom, then when you put your glue on your sentence strip, make sure that you put it on the bottom, because I'm going to use dimensionals to put the rest of this up. There we go. So it's been raining here like a lot. A lot. I had some guys come in to do some yard work yesterday, and it didn't rain yesterday, but then they were supposed to come back today, and they didn't because it rained, so. My yard is kind of half, well, they got the lawn mowed, and then I asked them if they could pull out a couple of bushes for me that the deer keep eating, so they're just not doing anything. I like the deer, don't get me wrong, but they come so close to the house and they eat anything. I had to get rid of tulips because they like to eat tulips, so I got daffodils because they don't like daffodils. And then I got azaleas because they don't eat azaleas, but they eat whatever this is I've got out there. Oh, what the heck is it? It's not boxwood, it's, well, it's something. Yeah, it is not coming to me right now. But anyway, it doesn't matter because every year it's nothing but leaves, if that, because the minute the buds come out, the deer come up and eat them. The nerve of them, I mean, they're practically coming up to my front door to eat these. Okay, so there's our card right there, Speedy Recovery, and then inside I can write my message. So that's that one, and then I will show you the one that I made on my own, off camera. I used Gorgeous Grape for the card base, and then I put a layer of black. So the black was 4 by 5.25, and then the DIY DSP done with the baby wipe technique is 3 3/4 by 5. I think I've got that right. All right, and then for this one I got out 4 colors but ended up only using 3. I used a tiny bit of Gorgeous Grape, and you can see the like slightly darker dots there. I used some Highland Heather, and I used some Orchid Oasis. I got out Fresh Freesia but decided against it, so I didn't use the Fresh Freesia. All right, so 2 different cards. The black really helps things to pop, and so I like that. This one says Just a Note, which I like because you can use it for almost anything. All right, the next set that we're going to use, and by the way, I could keep using this for probably 20 minutes and make a bunch of those cards if I wanted to. I could also slip it into a Ziploc bag carefully and use it again tomorrow, and maybe I would just have to freshen it up a little bit. So that's good to know as well, because you can get quite a bit out of them. So for this one, since you saw how I made the other one, I'm not going to do this one from scratch. This is one that I've had here. It's not dried out, but it's probably not wet. And I used initially, excuse me, Old Olive, Granny Apple Green, and a tiny bit of Daffodil Delight. This time, because I'm doing a different plant than I did before, I want some garden green in here. So I'm going to scatter garden green around and might even use the garden green to cover up some of that Daffodil Delight yellow as well. I'm just going to go a little bit more kind of crazy with this, and then we'll see what happens. I'm not sure what's going to happen because some of this other ink might be dry. So it's kind of a crapshoot, and that's okay because you just never know what you're going to get, and you never get the same thing twice, even if you use the same colors. That's what I like about crafting. That's what I like about this technique as well. Okay, so I am taking a piece of greenery from also new in the new catalog, not out yet. This is called Country Flowers, and I'm using the greenery-ish image, and I'm going to use this bench, and I'm going to use this, I guess that's like a milk can, right? I think it is. So that's what I'm going to use. So now I just need a scrap of white because I'm going to cut that out. And there are dies, but you know what I'm going to say, right? I'm going to fussy cut it just because it's easier and the dies are still in the box. So I'm just going to dab it a few times around. I am going to move it around a little bit, but not like that. I'm not going to rub it in. I'm just going to move it around into a couple of different places. Oh, and you know what I just realized? This is a brand new stamp, and it's photopolymer, so that means I should have kind of primed it. But it came out okay. So this is going to be different anyway because it's not a solid image. It's a line image. So I could leave that alone, or I could get out my colored pencils and I could color it, or I could get out my blends and I could color it. Any of those things would work. I'm just looking to see which one is closest. Okay, I think colored pencils win because colored pencils are closest. Oh, those aren't colored pencils, so colored pencils don't win. All right. The blends are down here in a drawer. what colors I can find. Well, I've got light granny apple green, but I definitely want something a little bit darker. Oh, pretty peacock. But pretty peacock. Yeah, pretty peacock's not going to go with that. I'm sorry, I try really hard not to do this. This is the container that's almost always sitting right on my desk. Only for some reason it wasn't. Well, I'm not seeing any of the greens that I want, so against my better judgment and just because, and for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and use the granny apple green. I think it'll work because this isn't too dark anyway. So these are our alcohol markers, and oops, I don't want that to, they do soak through, so you want to put something under them. And some people start with dark, some people start with light, and I don't necessarily do the same thing twice. Sometimes I do the whole thing in light and then go over it with dark. If you have leaves that have a vein in them, you might want to go over the vein in the dark, and then maybe the section of the leaves or the plant, whatever you're working on, that's closest to the center might be darker because it's not getting any light. Maybe one edge is a little darker. I am not a professional artist, so I'm just not thinking about what direction the sun is coming from. I just wanted to give it some variation. So I have another coffee and a card coming up on Tuesday. What is that? The second Tuesday in May. I think it's the 14th. That sounds familiar. Last week I had to cancel the Monday class because my venue decided to no longer be open on Mondays and to put a store in where my classroom was. So I'm looking for a new venue. I've had a couple of suggestions. My issue is, it's not an issue, is that a lot of the ladies that come to my classes at Grind On and at Erie Shore Landing, they're both restaurants. So the ladies like to come either early and have breakfast or come later and have lunch. So people are suggesting things like the VFW or the Legion or the Elks Club or whatever. And so, I would want to hear from those people that they'd be okay. The Elks Club, I don't think, serves food on a regular basis unless you're having like a party there or something. So I don't know if they would object to people bringing food in that they stopped and got on their way or not. I'm just not sure. The library does not allow you to charge for things. They don't really let businesses in. I could certainly say that I'm charging a, a materials fee, because the coffee and a card is very inexpensive, and so it certainly could be considered a materials fee. It's obviously a little bit above and beyond that, but I'm not getting rich on coffee and a card for sure. So I'm just trying to figure out what to do for Mondays, and there are also some people who, I'm not saying they're refusing to, but they prefer not to come to Grind On because it's a much smaller room that we're in. And I don't know, maybe they just don't like closed spaces or whatever. I'm not making any judgments. As some people just prefer to come to the one at Erie Shore because it's a much larger table and a much larger room. So I ought to get this figured out at some point. I think I just colored something that was supposed to just be air, but I'm not sure. I don't think anybody will notice. So what you're doing now is you're blending, hence the name blends, the light into the dark or the dark into the light. So I might go back to those dark lines that I made, and sometimes I go in circles, sometimes I just kind of go this way, so that you're dragging the dark into the light so that it's not quite such a noticeable difference between the two. I hope that makes sense. And I went out of the lines there, but that doesn't matter because I'm going to fussy cut that. And I do apologize because I keep saying I'm not going to fussy cut or color in front of you, but sometimes I don't have a choice. So these are our paper paper snips. I think the price is going up on these as well. When I was in Florida, I had a guest for a week. Bought a little bit more food than I would normally buy for myself, but honestly not that much more food, and our total came to $177. And that was just for 1 week for 2 little old ladies, you know. I'm just amazed at what, every time my total comes up on a cash register, I'm just like, really? And I'm finding myself reading everything to make sure that I didn't, you know, scan anything twice if I was doing it myself, or if if the cashier didn't scan something twice. It just doesn't seem believable to me that I would be paying that much for groceries. And actually, I should say that my guest insisted on paying those groceries, so she was the one who paid the $177, but it doesn't really matter who was paying it. It was just a whole lot. And I don't think I set foot in a store without spending $90, and sometimes I came out without any actual food. You know, like I had fruit and cleaning products and some other things, snacks, but I didn't have like a whole meal. All right, so fussy cutting is really not hard to do. It honestly isn't. When you're putting it down on a white background, you can leave a white layer around the edges so you don't have to cut quite as closely. I kind of just didn't do that this time, but it really is okay to do. If you're putting it against a darker color background, then you really have to make sure there isn't any white showing, because then it'll be pretty obvious. So when you're cutting, I know this sounds silly, like I'm sure we all learned to cut in kindergarten, but I didn't learn this until much later. You don't move the scissors so much except to open them and reclose them. You actually move the paper, and you get a much smoother cut. And it's amazing to me how many people say, I honestly just like never knew that, or I heard you say that and I thought it sounded really weird and I didn't believe you, but then I tried it and it works. So the only time I'm really moving the scissors is to open them and reposition them. And honestly, it does work. My son, who I'm sure will appreciate my sharing this with you, is 35 years old. Is it 35 now? I can't keep track. And he honestly still can't cut things with scissors. He wasn't good at it in kindergarten, and he's still not good at it. And I think it's because he's what I call a hacker. So a hacker is the kind of person that goes, you know, open, close, open, close, open, close with the scissors, and you get real choppy lines when you do that. So I think he's a hacker, not a computer hacker, a scissors hacker. All right, so now I need another one of these, and I am going to cut that down to, what am I going to cut that down to? I'm going to cut it down to 3 3/4. See, and then that gives me another one of those nice strips that I can put in my jar over here by 5. Because I'm cutting off 1/4 inch. And sometimes I cut off 1/2 inch or 1 inch, and I save those strips too, because I really do use them. All right, and just, in spite of the fact that my kids will make fun of me, I don't save a piece of paper like this. I really don't. You probably want to know why it's on my desk if I don't save it. I don't have an answer for you, sorry. There is no answer. Okay. So now that I know that I forgot to prime that other stamp, I am going to do that now. So what I mean by priming, when it's a brand new photopolymer stamp and it's never been used, I like to stamp with it. And then I like to, and I don't usually do it on paper towel, I use it on a piece of cardstock. I stamp, and then I just kind of smush, and then I stamp, and I smush, and then I get out a chamois, and I clean it. And then I make sure that it's dry. Sometimes I just kind of slap it against my hand. Sometimes I tap it on my jeans. The sweater that I'm wearing today is very fuzzy. You would never want to tap a stamp on a fuzzy sweater because you're going to get fuzz all over your stamp. And that's no fun. Okay, so let's see. Photopolymer stamps also need a little bit more cushion, and so I should have a mouse pad or something, a piece of foam or something. I don't have one right here. Sometimes I just use a pad of paper. Right. Don't look, don't pay attention. I have a pad of non-Stampin' Up! Cardstock from Marshall's because I was asked to make a journal. Well, I wasn't asked, I volunteered to make a journal for a young girl who said she wanted a journal for her birthday, which I thought was really sweet. And the fact that they actually used the word journal and not diary, I was very impressed. So I volunteered to make one, and I wanted lots of pretty, like, little girl type images. Oh, don't do that. No, no. Warning, warning. Hang on. I want to do the bench first, or the little step stool, whatever it is first, so that I know where to put the pot. So, hang on. I just averted another avalanche. I've got the ceiling fan on. Papers are blowing around. Excuse me. All right, so I've got pecan pie. And where did my paper towel go? I think that blew away too. Oh, no, here it is. Good grief. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Just stamp it and smush it and stamp it and smush it. And then clean it up on the Stampin' Chamois. I love these things. Mine are cut in half because I use them in classes. So that way everybody can have a little one in front of them, or every 2 people shares them or whatever. All right, so we're going to put the bench down first. That's pecan pie. Okay, so again, this is an image that needs to be colored in. If you had wood grain designer series paper, which we do have in the new catalog, and you might have some left over from past catalogs, you could possibly stamp it onto the wood grain and then die cut it out, and it would look like real wood maybe. Some of the grain might seem like it was going in the wrong direction, and that would all depend on how fussy you were. So that was pecan pie. This is smoky slate. Okay, and that certainly will need to be colored in. Excuse me. And now, because I've got this fussy cut, I can put this right on top of that with dimensionals. All right, so I want to color this, so I'm not going to do that right now, but I will go ahead and put it on a card base. So I've got an old olive card base here, and I made another sample so that you could just kind of see, although I didn't use the same stamp set for the other sample. All right, so two reasons for making it smaller. One reason is because you want to see more of the color, but that's not the reason. I did something when I cut this paper the first time. I don't know where my hand was or what happened, but I did not cut straight because I had to trim the other one too. And so this card will be just a tiny bit smaller, but take my word for it, no one will care or notice, I promise. And to those of you who are watching who haven't commented yet, because I can see your names popping up on my camera screen as well, please say hello. Tell us where you're watching from, or just say hello. All right, so I am going to use black again because I do like that look. So these, I think, are quarter sheets, or I don't know what they are, but they're not. They need to be trimmed. Whatever they are, they need to be trimmed. So let's see. All right, so 5 1/4. That one's, oh, maybe because I had to trim this card, and it's really not the right size anymore. That could be why. Okay. So, and it looks like it's got to have more coming off the end. So let's do, wait a minute. Oh, that's right. Let's do not 3 3/4, because that's 3 3/4. But maybe not quite 4 either. Gosh, I don't know. We'll do 3 7/8. No, no, no. No, no. We'll do 4 7/8. Whew, glad I stopped to think first about that one. Let's see, is that right? It may not be right, in which case we'll just forget I ever came up with the idea. You know, I could get out a ruler and do this, but, you know, like that just wouldn't be any fun. I think this is just not going to be right. That's what I think. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work. All right. Yeah, something's not right. I did something wrong when I cut that originally. I don't think it's even because of this. So we'll just leave this one the way it is. Although, wait. You can just do little things that just kind of make things pop. and that wouldn't be long enough, so that one wouldn't work. But let's just say, what if I did, let's go wild and do a whole inch. So I'm going to do a whole inch of paper that is going to cover this up. And let's make sure I cut this right. So yes, this is 3 3/4. So, no, I don't want that to be 3 3/4. This is me thinking out loud, and if it makes you feel any better, or even if it doesn't, I do this when I'm totally alone in this room as well. I do. I just think things all out. So that is now, that's 4 1/4, so that's right. Okay, I just goofed up the black cardstock somehow. But that's okay, because you always need scraps. Okay, so I'll show you what we'll do. It's nothing fancy. It's just kind of another way of adding a bit of a layer, a little bit of dimension, and another way of just making your top layer pop a little bit. So we're gonna, it doesn't really matter whether it's smack dab in the middle or not. Sometimes it's better not to try to get it in the middle, because then it doesn't look crooked. It looks like you did it on purpose. And then we're going to put that on, and I'll color. I should be able to color even though that's there. That wouldn't be a problem. And then I will post that card. I've been really, really, really bad about posting pictures of the cards after my lives. I don't know what my problem is. Sometimes it has to do with just the gray, because I get so much better pictures without a lot of shadows if it's a sunny day, and I can take them right by the window. If it's a cloudy, yucky day, then they don't come out so good. So I think the cloudy, yucky is just getting to me. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm just like waiting for some sunshine. Right now that's just the tiniest bit too long, but I don't think it even really needs trimming. All right, and then I won't do it now because I think that's right. I'm not sure if there is a right or wrong, but that's what it's going to look like, and this is going to be gray, and this is going to be brown. So the one that I made earlier using a different stamp set, that was using, they're always on the bottom of the pile if I'm looking for them. That was using Thoughtful Wishes, which is also new, coming out soon in the new catalog. And I used this image, and I used those 3 greens that I told you, or 2 greens and the Daffodil Delight. And then I used our double oval punch, which by the way is retiring. I'm not sure if it's gone yet or not, but I love this punch, and I'm so surprised that it's retiring because it's so popular for smaller sentiments, and then it has the, where is it so you can see it? It has, oh, do you see my pretty pens? These are the new in colors too. We got those at Onstage. When you become a demonstrator and you go to events like Onstage, you do get a lot of fun things, and Onstage is just a really good time. Next year it's in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's in March again, so I will be flying from Florida to Raleigh for that, and I have family in Raleigh. Maybe I can get to see them because I have a new baby cousin in Raleigh, and I can't wait to meet her. I remember her mother when she was a baby cousin. Okay, so this is it. So what's really cool about it is you get to stamp out both. I won't say both at once, because if you want 2 different colors, then you're going to put in a narrower piece of paper first, kind of like this, and cut out the small oval, and then you're going to put in another piece of paper from the top to cut out the big oval. But it's still really nice that they both come all in one punch. And I really like it a lot. And then I use some of the black and white gingham ribbon, which I also like a lot. And this one you can see, oh, and the I have such a hard time saying this, the brushed brass butterflies, which are not retiring, thank goodness, because I love them, and I bought so many of them. If they retired, I'd have to cry. So I put those on there too. And then, I didn't put anything on the inside, so I will have to put something on the inside. Haven't decided what yet. And I know exactly who I'm sending that to as well. All right, so that's those 2 cards, and then these 2 cards, and then the other, hang on, I know you can't even see all those, me and my hot mess here. Okay, here we go and here we go. The other baby wipe technique is actually easier, although it tends to be messier. And I did not make any samples for that one, but I'll just show you. We can do this kind of quick because I think it sort of speaks for itself. Now, another thing that you can do is to just take, I don't have any gloves up here, and I know I'm going to get my hands yucky, but it's okay. Take one that you already have that you're using for something else and fold it in half. And take it and just go, I'm going to go this way. So I'm thinking it's going to be kind of like a grassy area. Okay? You can go over it a couple of times, or you can leave it kind of sketchy like that. And I kind of like that. I'm going to have green fingers tomorrow. Then if I had one with blue on it, it would be really cool to do like blue sky. But let's think about this instead. So let's think maybe it's sunset, and it's a really red sunset. I know this is a bit extreme. But you're just taking these and you're just dragging it across. Now, because I just folded this over, all right, it's not quite the same. What some people will do is they'll put a little bit of the ink on it, and then they'll just sort of take it like it's just a regular baby wipe, and they'll start putting color on by going like this. And they use their finger to make sure that they don't get any white spots. They just kind of keep going over it and over it. And because the baby wipe is wet, and because there's all that ink on there, which shows you how much ink is on there, it's like really saturated. And so this is going to curl a little bit, but it will dry. So as you can see, this still has so much ink on it that I could continue to use this probably half the night. Just to make some other things. So this, maybe that's a little bit extreme for a red sky, but it could be used for something, just some kind of a fun background. Obviously, it could even be a Christmassy background if you wanted it to be. But you could, take one color or multiple colors and just use it. You're using basically your baby wipe as if it's like a paintbrush. Okay? Yeah, very, very inky. Lots of ink still in those baby wipes. So that is the other technique, and I will try to make up some samples of that as well, because I just didn't want to go too far over our, I try to keep it at 1 hour if I can. There was a time when I tried to keep it at 30 minutes, and that just, I have to be honest with you, it wasn't realistic. I do talk and work at the same time. I've noticed there are some people who can't talk and work at the same time, so the minute they start talking or responding to comments, their hand stops, everything stops. I don't do that. I keep going. You also have to be careful not to rub too much when you're doing this, because I see that I rubbed here and there's a little bit of, the paper pills up. So I'm going to have to get some serious soap and water. The other thing that you can use on your hands that won't necessarily take all the ink off your hands, but hand sanitizer will sort of set the ink so that you know it's not going to bleed onto something, because if I picked up a piece of white cardstock right now, I'd be leaving colored fingerprints on it and smudging it. All right, and so I'm just going to brush those pills off because they're not too bad. And I'll figure out something to do with this, even if it's just kind of a little bit of abstract art or something, who knows. So thank you very much for joining me today, and catch me on the replay. If you have suggestions, if you're local and you have suggestions for places to meet, or even if you're not local and you have a suggestion for a type of place to meet that I just might not be thinking of, I could do classes in my house. I then have to tell everybody that I have 2 cats, because if they're allergic to cats, they're not going to want to come to my house. I mean, I vacuum. The cats would be downstairs. They would not be where we are. But even so, it depends how allergic they are. I used to be so allergic to cats, don't ask me why I'm not anymore, that if I went into someone's house, not only could I tell if they had a cat, but I could tell if they had 2 cats, 4 cats, just by how fast I broke out in a rash on my chin and neck, and by how loud I was wheezing. And then when my daughter decided 15 or 16 years ago to keep this one little kitten, whether I liked it or not, and the cat decided that I was going to be his friend, I don't know, something happened and I wasn't allergic to cats anymore. So I'm very grateful for that, really. Okay, so again, thanks for joining me. Hope you catch me on the replay, and have a great rest of your night. See you next week.